It was a fun period. And at that point, television was pretty much the same. There were 18 variety shows on the air one year. And every one of those shows was pretty much the same. The host, the solo, a duet, a commercial, another duet, and they were all the same. And I came along because NBC had nothing to put on Monday night at 8 o'clock, opposite Lucy and Gunsmoke. And so they needed a show. And I had seen all of these young character people. And I said I could put them all together into one show. Nobody knew anybody on the show. They were all unknown, but funny, delightful people. And put them all together. And then we played. We taped a ton of material, and we taped it, and then we stopped people in the hall. We didn't have enough money to get guest stars. So we would stop people in the hall. And I got John Wayne. I said, Mr. Wayne, he said, I'm not going to do that show. Those people are crazy. Yes, thank you, Mr. Wayne. We put that on the air. So we put the first couple of years of Laughing was all cameo people who I didn't have to pay anything to, who I stopped in the hall. And it was a freedom. There was a freedom at that point because of the desperation of NBC to have anything to put on opposite Lucy and Gunsmoke. Until then, I'd done special with Danny Thomas, again, because of my experience in Las Vegas, and all of that kind of variety comedy television, which was all the same. And I wanted to do something different. And it was also something I could do for no money. That was a big key to my success, being able to deliver shows for nothing. So this thing came along, and it cost nothing, and we got it ready real quick. And there was all of these unknown, young, gorgeous character people. You know, you see Goldie Hawn, you immediately say, this woman is going to do something. And she did. She walked into the studio, and it was pure magic, as was Joanne and Ruth and Artie Johnson and all of those people. And a lot of luck was involved and desperation, because when you have a 0 rating in a time period, they'll try anything. And they did. So they gave me a commitment to do like 3 shows. And we did. Then when the show got on the air and it hit, then it just exploded, and we did anything. It was a great, great experience. Sketch comedy was not new. Sketch comedy existed. What didn't exist was the brief staccato kind of, punchline comedy. Until Laugh-In, everything was a long monologue and explanation and sketches and so forth. Laugh-In came on and things lasted 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds. So if you blinked, you missed something. So your parents or grandparents were glued to the set waiting for something to happen, and it usually did. It was a delightful period of time when the industry was offering nothing other than 18 hours, 18 shows of all the same kind of show, variety show. And so this came along, and it happened. It just exploded. And it was a delightful experience. I mean, how many times in a life are you going to find Lily Tomlin and Goldie Hawn and Ruth Buzzy and Artie Johnson, And with, when it happened so fast, the network really didn't know what was going on. They went, what the hell? This isn't a television. I said, yes, it is. They said, but this doesn't make sense. I said, right. That's the reason to do it. And I was very, very lucky. The timing was lucky. And then I married Jolene Brand, which that even more lucky because she was doing the Ernie Kovacs show. And Ernie had a big effect on me. And there's a tremendous amount of luck and desperation. And failure, by the way, is a very exciting experience, because when you fail, when you fall that far, getting up is a delightful experience. But the other people that we got to come on Laugh-In, and Lena Horne, for instance, to have Lena doing jokes. And it was a success born out of a vacuum where there was nothing much happening. And when you have that situation and you come in with something that's totally off the wall, first of all, there was a really viable cause for the telethons. And secondly, you had all the time to do anything you wanted to do, so you could experiment in them. And Jerry Lewis was an enormously talented young man. And we think about Martin and Lewis when they worked the Copa and everything. They worked at Copa, which was a tough place in New York, owned by Jules Podell. And people would make reservations. And as people kept arriving, they kept moving more and more tables ringside to where Martin and Lewis eventually had to work in the band, in the drummers and everything. Well, that situation itself lends itself to a comedy experience. And Jerry was great. But then what he didn't know was that Dean was funnier. Dean was always waiting, right? And he emerged. His voice was great. There was a laugh in his voice that was very appealing, and he was great looking. And Jerry was so crazy. And here came Dean, everybody, and he was just charming and warm and very, very funny, Dean. So, but at that point, the idea of doing a telethon where you could do all night long and do anything, it was a very seductive situation into which a lot of my people found great arena for celebration. And we've got to go back to the time when there were bright colors and bright people and funny things and a happy experience. The level of taste and acceptability on television today kind of concerns me a little. You don't need to use that language. You don't need to talk about the subject matter. The relationship between men and women, relationship between men and women and women. Those are funny incidents. Out of reality, they're funny. And then when you put them on with a little smile, it's a very seductive form that we need to see more of. I did one when I was going to do the Jerry Lewis telethon, and I didn't really want to do it. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And I said, okay. So Jerry came in, and our first meeting is supposed to be at, Jerry was a control freak. So our first meeting is supposed to be at noon. So I'm waiting, and so he arrives. And I told him, I said, we're going to go to your dressing room. And the dressing room was a closet, and that turned him off, right? And then eventually when we got to the room, nothing was right, and nothing was what he expected at all. And Jerry's reaction to being confronted with total confusion and pandemonium made even Jerry funnier. Accident. We've got to introduce more accident. And I don't mean just politically now, which is their own form of comedy, but people having fun, people laughing, people doing crazy things. We need to see more of that because we need the release.